Welcome to Burroughs Elementary.
Welcome to Burroughs Elementary. I'm Miss Clark, and I love teaching here. John Burroughs Elementary School welcomes students from all backgrounds and cultures. We currently serve students from countries such as Guatemala, Venezuela, Ukraine, Haiti, Somalia, Cambodia, Puerto Rico, just to name a few. Embracing the diversity of our students and their families is important to us because we're able to provide rich learning opportunities and experiences for our students, fostering understanding and appreciation of different cultures. Discussing traditions and celebrations helps students share their backgrounds and learn from each other. It promotes inclusivity and builds a sense of community, which creates meaningful connections and enhances learning.
Our Burroughs mission is we will embrace all families as partners in our community, developing the whole child in a safe, engaging, and inclusive learning environment. Our Burroughs B's are be respectful, be responsible, be safe, be caring, and believe in yourself.
So we have many wonderful community partners here at Burroughs that support our staff, students, and families, from churches to the Hilltop Library, tutoring programs, and dance programs. We want the whole family involved at Burroughs. We love having parents and caregivers in the building, so that you can get involved through volunteering, coming to our school concerts, award ceremonies, fall celebrations. We love having the whole family involved at Burroughs.
Burroughs Elementary School is named after a man named John Burroughs. John Burroughs was an American writer and naturalist that was very influential in conserving natural resources in America at the turn of the century. He is best known for his observations on birds, flowers, and rural scenes. There are 13 schools in the U.S. that are named after John Burroughs.
Greetings and welcome to this week's highlights from across the district. On Thursday, February 7th, students from West, Beechcroft, Northland, and Marion Franklin High Schools put their engineering and problem-solving skills to the test at the 5th Annual Central Ohio Miniature Bridge Building Competition. This exciting STEM challenge, held in partnership with the Franklin County Engineers Office, the Central Ohio Association of Bridge Construction and Design, ODOT, Columbus District 6, and The Ohio State University, brought together more than 160 teams and 400 students across Central Ohio. Using creativity, precision, and teamwork, students designed and built miniature bridges to withstand the highest load-to-weight ratio, putting their engineering knowledge to the test during live bridge testing. Congratulations to our talented students and their teachers for embracing STEM and taking on this challenge with innovation and teamwork. On Saturday, February 8th, CCS kicked off our Summer Opportunities and Engagement Fair at East High School, drawing over 650 attendees and more than 225 CCS families. The event was a great success, thanks to the incredible support from our partners, families, and community members. Over 50 organizations gathered in a collaborative effort to help CCS families discover a variety of enriching summer activities for their children. Attendees explored summer camps, job opportunities, community service hours, internships, and so much more. Many thanks to our Family Engagement Department, community partners, and dedicated volunteers whose efforts made this event a huge success. We're excited to see our CCS students and families make the most of these wonderful summer opportunities. In celebration of Francophone Month, third grade students at Ecole Kenwood French Immersion took part in a cultural exchange with students in Cameroon via Zoom. Francophone Month symbolizes the celebration of French as an international language. The exciting exchange between CCS students and students in Dieng, Cameroon, provided students with the opportunity to greet each other in French while discovering similarities and differences between cultures. Ecole Kenwood alum and Ohio State University graduate Preston Thomas, son of third grade teacher Isabel Cadeno, created this incredible international classroom connection. Now serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in Cameroon, Preston teaches math to middle schoolers, bridging cultures and sharing knowledge across continents. This event highlighted the value of global connections in education. It reinforces the cultural and linguistic competencies developed through the Immersion program, aligning perfectly with the values of Relationship Week, reaffirming caring communities with kindness, connection, empathy, and belonging. We are proud to announce that the Columbus City Schools Staff Wellness Initiative has earned 2 prestigious recognitions this year. The district has received the 2024 Healthy Worksite Platinum Level Award for large employers from the Healthy Business Council of Ohio and the Cancer Screening Excellence Award from the Ohio Department of Health. These honors celebrate the district's commitment to promoting employee wellness through comprehensive health programs that support and empower our staff. These awards recognize the efforts to create a healthier, more supportive workplace for our team. We're excited to continue building upon our staff wellness initiative, ensuring that we meet the evolving needs of our incredible employees for years to come. These have been your highlights from around the district for February 18th. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's February 18th regular board meeting. We'll do a call to order.
Ms. Ingalls?
Here.
Ms. Reyes?
Here.
Mr. Simmons?
Present.
Ms. Vieira?
Here.
Vice President Adair?
Present.
President Cole?
Here.
You have a
I
quorum.
will stand for the pledge. Bonjour tout le monde. I wanted to say that since it's French month. All right. So what we'll do is first we'll review the agenda here. We'll begin with public comment and taking public comment. We'll convene forward with board matters. We'll go into the superintendent's report and any reports from our other direct reports. We'll then vote on the we will vote on the consent agenda and approve the minutes. And also, we'll go through the consent agenda that goes from section 9.1 to section 23.7. I said that right. All right. All right. With that, moving forward. Oh, we'll also we'll also move to executive session as well. And after we have executive session, we'll immediately adjourn. With that, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none.
Vice President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes.
Ms. Ingles,
Yes.
Ms. Reyes,
Yes.
Mr. Simmons, President Cole.
Yes. All right. Now we'll move on into public comment. Our first speaker will be Ms. Sheena Sawyer. Ms. Sheena Sawyer, are you here? She's on remote. I think there was a bit of a challenge going on with that.
She's not available right now.
Okay, we'll move to our second speaker, Ms. Gloria Weaver. Ms. Gloria Weaver, also remote.
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening, Ms. Weaver. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, so to start.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Okay. Hi. So yes. So my daughter, she attends Ridgeview Middle School, and we've been having issues since the beginning of the school, and it's just a couple of things that I am just not not understanding of how the policies are in place or how things are being handled at the school. For instance, my daughter continuously is having issues with kids putting their hands on her or touching her property, things of that nature, with teachers witnessing these things, not doing nothing about it. That's one of the issues. Another issue, classroom control is a big problem at that school. There's constantly other students going into other classes that has issues with my daughter, trying to fight her, start things of that nature. Also, there has been multiple incidents that's been happening within this last week that I've reached out to the assistant principal, asked for calls back. I have not received any calls back. It was another incident today. Never received any call back. I've reached out to the superintendent to explain to them, my issues before I even get to this point. And then there's issues with attendance, and I don't know if this is a school thing or if this is a Columbus City policy, but when kids are getting suspended, then they're counting them as absences. So I don't know if that's something that's a policy within Columbus City schools, but I just don't understand that policy either. If that is a Columbus City school policy, how can you suspend kids and not utilize all your other tools you have, but then want to count absences against them? So that's another issue, and that may be a Columbus City issue, not just a Ridgeview issue. Another issue is I'm having an issue with one of her teachers in science on how the text or how they're presenting the learning objective to them. Big issue with that, big issue with discrepancies on grades and homework getting to this specific teacher. This specific teacher is on leave at home. There's just disconnect on work getting to them, work being done. Like I said, and then a disconnect on how this information is being displayed in the classrooms, how the information is being taught to the students. I have a concern about that. It's 6th grade science. So I just have a lot of concerns about this school that I've just been having issues at the beginning of the school since August. And like I said, I've addressed it and reached out to the superintendent, which I believe was Dr. Harris, I believe. But basically what I was told from him was to continue to reach out to the principal. But the principal had got to the point where there was no reaching out to her anymore. Then I was told to, call customary relations, and that's how I got to this point of addressing the board.
I thank you so much, Ms. Weaver. Is there someone who can provide some assistance to Ms. Weaver?
Yes, there's
offline?
a follow-up with her.
Okay. There's a follow-up schedule. Thank you so much for calling, Ms. Weaver. We'll move on to our next speaker, Mr. Franklin Baumberger. Welcome this evening. You have 3 minutes as soon as you begin.
Good evening, Board President Cole, Vice President Adair, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, Treasurer Cook, Internal Auditor O'Connor, and members of the Columbus City Schools Board of Education. My name is Franklin Baumberger, and I am a sophomore at Columbus Alternative High School. I attended Columbus Gifted Academy for middle school and have grown up with many trans and non-binary friends. Though I am cisgender myself, my closeness to them gives me a window into the obstacles they face on a near daily basis. Even if they are lucky enough to have a supportive family, which many are not, they still face daily discrimination. In their 2021 National School Climate Survey, the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network surveyed over 22,000 LGBTQ+ students ages 13 through 21 across the United States. Of the 22,000, 43% reported feeling unsafe at school because of their gender expression, 83% reported hearing negative remarks targeted towards transgender people, and 56% reported being directly verbally abused or harassed based on their gender expression. Along with this, it was reported that LGBTQ+ students who were victimized performed poorer in school and were twice as likely to not show interest in post-secondary education when compared with their peers. A school's job is to teach, protect, and encourage students in their journey to excellence. A bathroom bill contradicts this goal as it adds to the discrimination and victimization already faced by transgender and non-binary students by forcing them into the bathrooms and locker rooms of a gender they do not see in themselves. Supporters of the bathroom bill have claimed that having trans and non-binary accommodations in school bathrooms puts children at risk of sexual attacks. But in a study performed by the Williams Institute at UCLA, which analyzed the number of reports of assault and sex crimes in bathrooms, dressing rooms, and locker rooms, the passage of laws similar to the bathroom bill was not shown to have any effect on crime rates. At the end of the day, we aren't talking about an abstract problem or the people in a few news stories. We are talking about kids. We are talking about my friends. We are talking about the youth of Columbus, and we are talking about the leaders of tomorrow. What possible gain would come from forcing students to stunt children's academic and personal growth? Please, allow schools to manage their own bathrooms based on what they believe is in the best interest of their students by not adopting a new policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Baumberger. Next, we have Ms. Adeline Dixon. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. You have 3 minutes.
The most radical thing that any of us can do is to stop projecting our beliefs about gender onto other people's behaviors and bodies. Julia Serrano. Good evening, President Cole, Vice President Adair, Treasurer Cook, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, and members of the board. My name is Rob Dixon, and I stand before you today with hope. Hope for my future. Hope for the futures of my transgender brothers and sisters everywhere. Hope that you can make the decision to protect the transgender youth in Columbus City Schools. When I was informed of this opportunity to speak before you today, I immediately agreed to participate. I firmly believe that I speak on the behalf of all of my transgender peers when I say that this bill, Senate Bill 104, or the bathroom bill, is going to do nothing but harm to the trans community in all of the affected schools. Think about it from my perspective. I'm a middle schooler. I'm 13. Using the restroom is an extremely mundane, everyday task. I go to school to learn, to grow, to engage and build relationships with my peers, and prepare myself for the future. I don't go to school to get told that I can't use the restroom that I feel comfortable using. Our district's response to this harmful, hateful, invasive law is crucial to the success of non-binary and transgender students in CCS schools. Being a member of the transgender youth community is a challenge. It's already a daily emotional struggle to simply exist in society as who I know I am. To have my teachers, the people I look up to, enforce a bill that tells me I'm not valid enough in my identity to do something as simple as using the restroom I'm comfortable in is detrimental in many ways. It is so important to make transgender youth feel accepted and welcome in our community. Even if you don't know them, every school in CCS has transgender students. They should have the right to be comfortable in their own skin, to feel heard and seen by their teachers, staff, and school board, and to feel safe at school. Feeling distrust in your school can lead to harmful impacts in the classroom. If transgender students don't feel secure and safe throughout their school day, it can affect their learning and education. Test scores, graduation rates, lower attendance, and more can and will ensue if students don't feel like they can be the fullest versions of themselves in school. As I previously mentioned, it can affect the mental health of students who don't feel supported and stable. It can affect the trust that scholars have in their teachers. There are so many negative consequences that this bill will cause, and that is why we ask you to repeal our current restroom policy in favor of no policy at all. Saying nothing is much more palatable than saying something that directly discriminates against our students and families. and the current policy essentially writes discrimination into policy due SB 104. I should have the right to make my own decisions about where I choose to use the restroom. My transgender siblings should have the right to make this trivial choice. It shouldn't be up to anyone besides the scholars themselves, but since we've been put in this position, you get to make this choice, and we are counting on you. We have put our trust in you, the school board members, to make the choice that puts the students you are supposed to be representing first. Please don't let us down. Please rescind policy 5517.02 titled Transgender and Gender Variant Students, but please also continue to support and affirm LGBTQIA+ students within this district. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this evening. Our next speaker is either Kyros or Kairos Irwood. Did I say that correctly? Kairos. Okay, we'll move to the next speaker. Ruby Browning. Is Ruby Browning here? Good evening. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Board President Cole, Vice President Adair, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, Treasurer Cook, Internal Auditor O'Connor, and members of the Columbus City Schools Board of Education. My name is Ruby Browning, and I'm a 10th grade student at Columbus Alternative High School. I'm here to advocate for the revocation of policy 5517.02, titled Transgender and Gender Variant Students, which was adopted on August 12, 2022. Although I'm supportive of repealing this policy so that CCS remains in compliance with Ohio law, that's not the reason I'm speaking in front of you today. Instead, I aim to stress the importance of gender nonconforming students' mental, emotional, and physical well-being, which are all severely at risk and will continue to be severely at risk if we do not act in support of it. For one, transgender students are at a disproportionate risk of violence and discrimination compared to cisgender students. According to the National Youth Risk Behavior Survey, 25.3% of transgender students reported that they skipped school due to feeling unsafe, compared to 8.5% of cisgender male students. An estimated 40% were bullied at school, and 72% experienced persistent feelings of fear and hopelessness. 20% of transgender students attempted suicide, compared to 5% of cisgender males and 11% of cisgender females. These statistics aren't just rates and numbers and proportions. These are lives lost. These are children and teens whose sense of self-worth has been destroyed by anti-trans discrimination, the most malicious of which is anti-trans legislation. In a 2020 study by the Society for Adolescent Health and Medicine, 58% of trans youth reported being prevented or discouraged from using a bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity. Among the trans youths who experienced bathroom discrimination, 85% experienced depressive, mood, and 60% contemplated suicide. Furthermore, 1 in 3 trans youths who experienced bathroom discrimination reported a past year suicide attempt, with 1 in 5 reporting multiple. Those in favor of anti-trans bathroom bills propose that these policies will protect children. This is false. Instead, these legislations harm the very children that they purport to serve. The journal Nature Human Behavior noted in November of 2024 that enacting state-level anti-transgender laws increased suicide attempts among trans youths by 70 to 72%. I want to ask you, this board, and everyone present today, what is inherently more harmful to American values and to the safety of our youth? Is it hundreds of trans children a year taking their lives due to these cruel and prejudicial laws? Or is it letting a 10th grader into the girls' bathroom, which I humbly remind you features advancements such as locked doors and individual stalls? Anti-transgender legislations like the bathroom bill do not aim to better serve or defend the people of Columbus. They seek to divide, they seek to scapegoat, but they do not seek to protect. I ask you to please repeal policy 5517.02, but do not forget the individuals Ohio's increasingly anti-trans policies will inevitably harm. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Kaya Aitken. Our next speaker is Kaya Aitken. And if I did mispronounce it, I do apologize.
Good evening, President Cole, Vice President Adair, Treasurer Cook, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, and members of the board. My name is Kai Aiken. The topic I will be speaking about today is CCS's response to the bathroom bill and CCS Board Policy 5517.02, titled Transgender and Gender Variant Students and How Transgender and Non-Binary Students Will Be Forced to Use the Bathroom of Their Assigned Sex and How Your Decision Will Affect the CCS Students. School should be a safe place for students, right? If bathroom rights are taken away from non-binary and transgender students, it won't be. People don't feel comfortable using a bathroom that doesn't align with the gender that they identify with, and that makes sense. I wouldn't either. How would you feel if you were forced to use the bathroom that doesn't align with your gender? 25% of the transgender population is banned from using the bathroom that aligns with their gender in schools, government buildings, and in 2 states, it is considered a criminal offense. This shouldn't be allowed. People, no matter what they identify as, should be able to use a restroom that they feel comfortable using. Another thing, how would it be enforced? Teachers can't stand by the bathroom entrance all day, and having surveillance cameras in any restrooms is illegal. Something else for you to consider, if custodians and janitors can enter the restrooms of their opposite biological sex to clean, why can't transgender students use their preferred restroom? And, according to a study in 2019, trans youth who can't use the bathrooms of their gender are more likely to experience some form of sexual violence. CCS has traditionally upheld a very supportive set of protections for transgender and non-binary students. Our bathroom policy has reflected these protections. For all the reasons I've listed above, I asked the school board to remove the current policy in order to be in compliance with current state laws, but to adopt no new policy. The absence of a new policy is what will speak volumes of support to the students and families that you, the Board of Education, serve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kaya. Our next speaker is Austin Tapp. Austin Tapp, good evening. Thank you for joining us. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, President Cole, Vice President Adair, Treasurer Cook, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, and members of the board. My name is Austin. I am a junior in high school, and I am a transgender man. I wanted to start out by saying that I appreciate your efforts to protect and educate trans students like myself. You have demonstrated that my presence in CCS is not something to be feared, which is not a given in this current political climate. Senate Bill 104 is a bill with many holes in regards to execution and timeline. Compliance with this law would not mean very much in practice beyond a sign change. After all, how could the CCS administration be expected to enforce a bill that requires knowledge of a student's private body? I'm certain that CCS does not have the funds to enforce a bathroom policies that take precious seconds out of the school day and out of my time. Nobody can sue CCS for enforcing a bill that has no way to enforce itself. At my school, I go to the restroom to do my business and then leave. I cannot see how I cause a disruption by using the single-stalled men's restroom at my school, and neither do my teachers or my classmates. If the Ohio State Senate truly believes that I do cause a disruption to the point that they must legislate against it, I would like to see them put their money where their mouth is. The rate of transgender suicide attempts increases by 72% when bills such as Senate Bill 104 are passed, according to the Trevor Project. Do we have any solid evidence that Senate Bill 104 does anything to protect our children or their education? How many children do we want to put at risk for the sake of state compliance? A 72% increase in suicide rates is nothing short of a danger to children. It is your responsibility, CCS board members, to protect the children you educate. You are the second line of defense to prevent suicide before parents. You have a unique opportunity to set a precedent of resistance to protect the students you guide, under liberty and justice for all. I believe in the possibility of infinite possibilities. So I ask that you believe in my future and consider the futures of the kids affected by this bill before they no longer have a future to speak of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Misha Wright. Misha Wright. Good evening. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, President Cole, Vice President Adair, Treasurer Cook, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, and members of the board. My name is Misha Wright, and I'm a sophomore at Columbus Alternative High School. Unlike some of my peers today, I will not be using stats to represent this issue. Although they're great to gauge the severity of a situation or provide good evidence for a claim, they do not outline the human experience. Now, I understand how important it is to maintain district funding. However, I also understand that not rescinding this policy is dangerous and for any and all students. It raises many questions. How would these policies be enforced in the bathrooms? One passing glance or a conversation isn't enough to judge. This will not just affect transgender students, this will also affect cis and intersex students. It will affect everyone. This does not protect the students, it harms them. It creates a circle of hate and judgment and fear for young people in the school system. Creating such tension and malice at this age is detrimental to their mental health and how they view not only themselves but others down the line. The people enforcing and pushing for these policies are the ones who are unaffected and will continue to remain unaffected. I ask you to please rescind State Bill 104. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Esme Holt. Esme Holt. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, President Cole, Vice President Adair, Treasurer Cook, Superintendent Dr. Chapman, and members of the board. My name is Esme Holt, and I attend the Columbus Gifted Academy in the CCS School District. As a student, I am affected by Senate Bill 104, which aims to prevent transgender students from using the restroom that corresponds with their gender identity. This can and has resulted in so much harm, not only to transgender students, but cisgender students as well. Today, I want to share the importance of allowing and encouraging all students to use the restroom that coincides with their gender without being subjected to privacy invasion, discrimination, or violence. To start, allowing trans students to use a restroom that aligns with their gender allows them to feel safe and equal to cis people and doesn't hurt anyone. A big talking point for people who support Senate Bill 104 is that allowing trans people in general to use the restroom that aligns with their gender results in violence and sexual harassment. This argument is especially aimed towards trans women. This is not at all true. And as an article from Advocates for Trans Equality states, hundreds of cities, school districts, and 18 states already protect transgender people's rights to use the restrooms, and none have seen a rise in incidents of people attacking anyone or of people pretending to be transgender in order to get access to restrooms. Trans people only want to do their business and feel safe doing it, just like everyone else. Trans students having the right to use the restroom that aligns with their gender does not hurt anyone. Taking away that right, however, does hurt someone. The Kaleidoscope Youth Center names a concern to be the discrimination and harassment based on a student's actual or perceived sex, gender, gender identity, gender expression, or nonconformity to gender stereotypes. As this statement suggests, not only are trans students affected, but cis students as well. Even if you are a cis student, if you happen to look trans, then you could be made to prove you're not trans or prevented from using the restroom. This situation is just horrifying, as proving you're trans could mean an invasion of privacy that is simply disgusting and at least used to be highly illegal. The alternative to this not unlikely scenario is to hold it until you get access to another restroom. This isn't always possible, however, as many people have health conditions which prevent them from being able to wait to use the restroom. I myself have one of these conditions, and having access to a restroom without a hassle is necessary for me to have a good education. I can't imagine having that basic amenity taken away from me. Given these points, the importance of allowing and encouraging all students to use the restroom that coincides with their gender rather than sex assigned with birth without being subjected to privacy invasion, discrimination, or violence is undeniable. Right now, a lot of people's safety are at risk because of Senate Bill 104. And the best thing you can do to provide your support to CCS students is to remove our current policy 5517.02 titled Transgender and Gender Variant Students. This will allow educators to keep supporting students without being in direct defiance of the law and in turn risk losing staff, among other things. Using the restroom is one of the most important bodily functions, and it's a basic human right. In order to get a proper education, we need to respect these rights and treat people like people. Thank you for having me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Our last speaker, will be Elle McMahons. Thank you for joining us this evening. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, and community members. My name is Elle, and I'm a 7th grader at Indianola Informal K-8. And today I'm here to speak about Policy 5517.02. I feel lucky to be at Indianola, where the staff truly upholds this board's commitment to honoring the identity of every student you serve. But I'm here on behalf of my peers, queer or not, to ask you to rescind Policy 5517.02 because it's the safest option for students and causes the least harm. There's no perfect way to tell your parents that you are gay or trans. It's never easy, but a school should not be the one to break that news. These are personal conversations meant for home, and rescinding Policy 5517.02 ensures that students have the right to privacy when it comes to their identity, so that the school does not out them to their parents without permission. No policy is better than a discriminatory policy. Every student deserves to feel safe and comfortable at school, and that includes having a restroom they can use without fear, embarrassment, or danger. I understand that CCS must comply with any laws set in place, but I also know that you have the power to make sure no student is left out or felt unsafe.
Take your time.
Take your time.
Take your time.
Okay.
You're doing an awesome job.
The best way to do that is to ensure there are private restrooms in every school. These bathrooms don't just help transgender students, they help students with disabilities, students who need privacy, and any student who wants to feel comfortable. No one should have to feel scared or uncomfortable just because they need to use the restroom. I'm asking you to create policies and allocate funding to make this happen. You can ensure that every school has enough restrooms that meet both the law and the needs of students. By doing this, you'll be following the law while also protecting every student's right to feel safe, respected, and valued. This isn't about politics, it's about dignity. It's about making sure every student, no matter who they are, can focus on learning instead of worrying where they can go to the bathroom. You have the power to make a real difference to protect students like me. I urge you to rescind Policy 5517.02 and advocate and allocate funding to ensure every student has enough restrooms that comply with Senate Bill 104 without harming students. Thank you.
Thank you, Elle. Thank you, speakers. My goodness. I just have such a moment of pride right now. I can't explain it. Thank you all for your heartfelt comments. We will move into board matters. But just before we begin board matters, I just wanted to make a very brief statement about how this district honors the dignity of identity for our children. We accept them however they come to us. So the Columbus City School Board of Education respects and values each and every one of our students and staff. The district remains committed to ensuring our mission statement that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as citizens of a global community. We thank each and every one of you for your ardent, your passionate, your fervent advocacy on this issue and on behalf of children. we as a board honor that. So I will now motion with this resolution regarding Board Policy 5517.02, transgender and gender variant. The Columbus City School Board of Education respects and values each of our students and staff members. The district remains committed to ensuring each student is empowered for success as a citizen in the global community while also following the law. Whereas the Columbus City Schools Board of Education believes the care, safety, and uniqueness of every student and staff member is paramount to providing an individualized educational experience and creating successful educational environments aligned to the values of our community. Whereas the student wellness is critical to each student's ability to fully access learning, overcome obstacles, accelerate gap closing, and prepare for future success. Whereas the Ohio legislature passed and the governor signed Senate Bill 104, which includes provisions related to student restrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, shower rooms, and overnight accommodations, and Senate Bill 104 goes into effect as of February 25th, 2025. Whereas upon election, each board member took the following oath: I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as a board member of the Columbus City School District, Franklin County, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted. During my continuance in said office and until my successor is elected and qualified. Therefore, be it resolved, the Columbus City School Board of Education commits to follow all federal, state, and local laws. Be it further resolved, the board rescinds Board Policy 5517.02. Be it further resolved, the superintendent and district staff are directed to comply with this board resolution. Be it further resolved, the board continues to prioritize the care, safety, and uniqueness of all students and staff members to promote excellence, personal and professional growth, and the culture of belonging. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, ma'am.
Make the motion that the motion be that we adopt the resolution as entered into board docs right now. You added some additional language.
It's actually just a restatement of some language that's already in the policy.
Just to be clear, there's that the motion is for the resolution as written in board docs. I would like the motion to reflect that, please. Vice President Adair, would you second that motion?
Yes, I believe President Cole added some commentary before, which was fine, but the statements as presented in board docs with the whereas clause is the actual resolution.
So is that a second?
It's a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so now we're good to go.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Vice President Adair?
Yes.
President Cole?
Yes. Resolution is adopted. We have Section 4.2, Resolution to Celebrate, Honor, and Recognize Black History Month. Vice President Adair.
Thank you. I'm privileged to put forward this resolution recognizing Black History Month. Columbus City Schools proudly recognizes Black History Month as a time to honor the history, achievements, and contributions of Black Americans whose legacy has shaped the cultural, social, and economic fabric of our city, state, and nation. This board affirms that education fosters unity by bringing together diverse experiences, histories, and perspectives that remains committed to creating inclusive learning environments that prepare students to be informed leaders in a global society. First proposed by Carter G. Woodson in 1926, Black History Month has, for 99 years, highlighted the Black experience as an essential part of the American story And the 2025 theme, Black Americans in Labor, recognizes the vital role Black workers, entrepreneurs, and labor leaders continue to play in building our nation. Black history is enriched by the legacy of the Black Greek letter organizations known as the Divine Nine, which were founded to foster academic excellence, leadership, and service during a time of exclusion from mainstream fraternities and sororities, and have since played a pivotal role in civil rights advocacy, social justice, and community advancement. Ohio has been home to numerous Black pioneers who shaped labor, industry, and civil rights, including Garrett Morgan, an inventor who improved workplace safety, Lucy Stratton, the first Black woman in the U.S. to complete a college course of study, and Judge Robert Duncan, whose landmark 1977 ruling helped desegregate Columbus City schools. Napoleon Bell Sr., executive director of the Columbus Urban League from 1958 to 1982, was a key advocate for desegregating Columbus City schools and expanding economic opportunities for Black families, reinforcing the district's commitment to educational access. Columbus has long been a center of Black excellence with thriving communities, businesses, and institutions such as the historic King Lincoln Bronze District and Columbus City Schools, where Black educators, administrators, and students continue to drive progress and see their heritage reflected in education. Black Americans have played a vital role in the workforce, excelling at labor leaders, essential workers, and entrepreneurs, exemplifying the district's commitment to preparing students for lifelong success through high-quality learning experiences. Supporting programs and initiatives that create opportunities for underrepresented communities, celebrate collective strengths, and highlight the contributions of Black Americans is essential to fulfilling the promise of America. Columbus City Schools remains committed to empowering each student, including those of Black ancestry, by fostering a learning environment that values and uplifts Black history, ensuring access to a high-quality education. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the Columbus Board of Education that this board recognizes February 2025 as Black History Month and calls upon students, families, residents, businesses, community leaders, and educators to commemorate this month through meaningful education, dialogue, and engagement in activities that celebrate the enduring contributions and legacy of Black Americans. That is a motion.
I motion to approve the document as listed in board docs, understanding that Vice President Adair left out the whereases when she read the document, so she has my second for the motion.
So there's a second.
Thank you.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
Vice President Adair?
Yes.
President Cole?
Yes. I'd like to call to the podium the following community leaders: Napoleon Bell Jr., Mr. Adrian Moore, and each member of the National Panhellenic Council, Local Chapter Columbus, Ms. Lois Carson, Mr. Andre Washington, Ms. Regina Fuentes, and also Mr. John Coneglio. Please come to the podium. Yes. And what I would like to do, I would like us all to get a picture with this group of folks. And the reason being is I think today is making a very clear statement that DEI is something serious to us, that we accept that history, American history, is important, and our contribution matters. Let's all get this photo together, please.
Okay. Well, I'm Napoleon Bell II. And I would like to say thank you, though, for honoring my father, Senior, on his advocacy and work he did over so many years here in Columbus, Ohio. It does give me pleasure to know that the work he has done was received and also with schools. He often talked about schools. Many people didn't know that he had a college or he had a teaching certificate. That's one thing that he impressed upon me. You need to get your teaching certificate because you never know when you might need it. But he was always an advocate for young people in schools and the importance of education. And so he talked about that often. So I appreciate this. And also his advocacy for the community here, even for ones to be able to get a loans for housing. He started a Beneficial Mortgage Acceptance Corporation to be able to provide loans to black folk who could not get loans in communities. So his work does not go unnoticed for me, especially. It's big shoes to fill, but I appreciate the board with their recognition of the work that he's done. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adrian Moore, and I'm the proud assistant principal at Champion Middle School and also the president of MPHC Columbus. The MPHC of Columbus covers 15 chapters of the Divine Nine organizations here in Columbus. We wanted to thank you and pledge to continue to do the fine work in our communities that we do, serving over 25 of our schools with our leadership and mentoring programs. So thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
To President Cole and to Vice President Adair and to the superintendent of our great school district, Dr. Chapman. I'm standing on behalf of the Columbus Education Association representing the teachers, the minority teachers, and all teachers of the association. Standing with me, of course, is the president of the Columbus Education Association, John Coniglio. Would you please give him a round of applause? We have members of our Board of Governors present here this afternoon. We have the chairperson of the Minority Involvement Program with us this afternoon, and we also have a member of the OEA Executive Board with us. Thank you so much. The recognition tonight means a lot to us. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you all. I want to take another point of privilege, if I can, colleagues. I was just incredibly touched by the words of our students who came before us and so confidently and articulately, powerfully spoke to us this evening. I would like us to all get a picture with our students. If you would allow us, can we be a part of the cool section of this room right now? If you would allow us, we would love the honor to take a picture with you all. Thank you all.
Oh my Me neither.
Yes, ma'am.
Ooh. My goodness. Thank you all again for your advocacy this evening. Tonight is a very special night. Moving on, we will move to Section 4.3 of Board Matters, where we will open up the floor to Dr. Chapman to discuss our board monitoring 9/11 interims for closing opportunity gaps. Thank you so much, Dr. Chapman.
Yes, good evening, President Cole, Vice President Adair, members of the board, and community. I certainly want to thank you for this opportunity to provide an update on our interim goals 3.1 to 3.3, closing opportunity gaps. Tonight, we'll share an update on the progress that our 9th, 10th, and 11th grade cohorts are making towards graduation. Let me first start by acknowledging our teachers, our building principals, our support staff across all of our high schools in the district who have had a relentless focus on matriculation. We are proud of the growth that our scholars are making and pleased to check in on how our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders are progressing towards graduation, our theory of action to improve student outcomes, and the next steps we will take to ensure continued growth. The information being shared this evening is a monitoring report that is aligned to the student outcomes-focused governance model that the board has adopted. This model helps us to make sure our decisions and resources helps improve students' learning and success. We are providing a monitoring report in this board meeting as a model for the work that we expect to see in all of our schools. We are modeling a pattern of behavior that starts with data. We will analyze this data and present our strategies to address gaps. Building and teacher teams do this on a regular basis in all of our schools. This process is supported by research on how effective school boards improve student outcomes. As this slide indicates, we have a graduation goal that increases each year. Our board has certainly adopted an annual goal for graduation, and as superintendent, I have set interim goals each year for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. These goals challenge us as an organization and require changes in adult behaviors to ensure that our students are successful. In tonight's presentation, you'll see that the monitoring process is working as it is intended. We are checking in on our progress at mid-year to see where we are on track in matriculation and where we need to do some mid-course correction to ensure our students meet the goal this spring. If we waited to review our data at the end of the year, it would be too late to intervene where needed. Our matriculation teams are responsible for monitoring the progress of their students regularly. They do not wait until the end of the year to test or to check on who is on track. It can be tempting to jump ahead to graduation, so I'll remind everyone that we are only going to talk about our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders this evening. While our student outcomes at mid-year may not match perfectly with the end goal, this is only problematic when there is no evidence of sufficiently aggressive strategies in place to increase growth and help students make progress. Again, this month, I just would like to remind everyone that we are leading by example. What happens here in our board meetings is more likely to be echoed in our schools and our classrooms. We're setting the culture for CCS by engaging in this process, and we want a culture where teachers, our staff members, our principals are open and reflective in their craft. We must set the stage for that by demonstrating that as leaders. We are data-driven and reflective in our monitoring. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brown to share our data.
Good evening. It's hard to follow the kids this evening. The goals build upon themselves. The interim goals work almost like a ladder, where students begin in 9th grade, prepares them for 10th, prepares them for 11th, and on to graduation. We move forward and look at how each of these goals is defined, each of these interim goals in terms of the work for our students and our faculty and their families. I'm going to focus on the right-hand side of this on-track status. So when we're looking at our freshmen, the class of 2028, at mid-year to be on track, we expect students to have 5 credits, or pardon me, 2.5 credits total, and at least a half a credit in English and a half a credit in math. As students move on to the second year of high school, our cohort 2027, our sophomores, the expectation is that students will have 7.5 credits by the middle of the year, with 1.5 of those credits being in English and another 1.5 being in math. This again puts them on track to graduate and has them on track in terms of credit accrual for the base requirements for graduation. Moving on to the third year of high school, our cohort 2026. At mid-year, those students are expected to have 12.5 credits total at that point, with at least 2.5 credits of those credits, 2.5 being in English and another 2.5 being in math. Again, setting the stage for students to be prepared to enter the 12th grade year and to be on track for graduation. With that being said, let's move on and look at our 9th grade cohort and where they are this year. Again, the layout of these charts and the tables that accompany them is the same. We look at the trend of data over time, and we look at where we are with respect to the goals. The trend line in blue reflects our performance over time, and the orange reflects our goals. Our 9th grade continues to exceed pre-pandemic performance. And this year, our students exceeded their target yet again, and it's the second highest performance demonstrated by our 9th grade students in their first year of high school overall. Again, solid progress, maintaining this movement forward and exceeding the goal. Again, when we break this out and we look overall, again, this 9th grade performance exceeds the goal. Most student groups met or exceeded the goal. As you look down the right-hand side, you can see the vast majority of those are in light blue, and that means that they've exceeded the goal. They're greater than 102% of the goal that was expected this year. In other areas that were quite close. Moving on to our 10th grade students, the second year of high school. This is the 3rd consecutive year that we've seen gains for our students. 3 years in a row, our students have improved their performance over time in the second year of high school. Overall, this performance is near our interim goal, but remains slightly below the target right now. Pleased to say that our largest student group, African American, met the goal this year. And improvements were seen across students in all service categories. So when we look at students who receive special education services, students for whom English is a second language, gifted, and our homeless students all showed progress this year in moving towards this goal. Finally, moving on to 11th grade, 3rd year of high school. There was a 2.3 percentage point improvement from last year, further closing our gap with the target. Again, accelerating towards the closure of this gap. This is the highest post-pandemic performance for our 11th grade students ever, and demonstrates, again, continuous improvement over time and acceleration of growth. Again, overall, our 11th grade performance is near, but remains below the interim goal. And again, we saw improvements in performance by over half of the student groups that we look at as we move through this. Again, solid performance overall moving forward in all 3 goal areas. With that, I'm going to hand things back to Dr. Chapman.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. So now I'll talk a little bit about our strategies. Our key strategies this year involve process improvements that we have put in place to ensure every student has the best opportunity to be on track to graduate with their peers. Our approach is highly differentiated by both school and individual student needs, ensuring we provide the right resources at the right time. Some of the key strategies include
we have matriculation specialists at high schools who participate in monthly training focused on key matriculation strategies that support student success. These are evidence-based practices from the field. In addition to a building matriculation specialist, we have recently put in place district matriculation teams, which we have talked about before. This is a strategy where we empower site-based teams to create a matriculation playbook, providing further steps and support for students, and that will focus on systematic issues, including but not limited to grading inequities that are contributing to high failure rates and a systematic approach to documentation. We also have a laser-like focus to tracking student progress beginning in 8th grade. A menu of intervention strategies have been added to the graduation tracking report that allows schools to select targeted interventions that will help students, including but not limited to tutoring, mentoring, counseling, and additional supports. This addresses both academic and non-academic barriers that may stand in the way of graduation. In addition to student interventions, we are committed to monitoring the quality of instruction in all of our classrooms. Our district-wide learning walkthrough tool is used by administrators to observe classroom instruction and provide feedback to ensure high-quality, effective teaching is happening. Our job-embedded coaching and professional development is a key strategy to increase the capacity of our principals, equipping them with the skills needed to be strong instructional leaders. By combining these efforts with consistent monitoring and professional development, we are creating a comprehensive, responsive system designed to support student success and ensure timely graduation for all students. Student attendance continues to be a key indicator, as we will see on our next slide. This table reflects the percentage of students who are meeting the interim goals for attaining credits by attendance category. For example, for students in cohort 2028, students who attend school satisfactory or 95% of the time or more significantly exceed our interim targets for credit attainment. In fact, when students attend school more than 80% of the time, they exceed our interim goals in all cohorts. On the other hand, when students attend less than 80% of the time, they perform well behind their peers with better attendance. For example, for students in cohort 2026, those who miss 1 day a week or more were severely chronically absent and only on track with credit attainment 55% of the time. While I'm happy to report that we have seen a 5 to 10% reduction in chronic absenteeism, we continue to have to work to do as roughly 1/3 of the students in these high school cohorts, the data that we're sharing tonight, are still severely chronically absent, meaning they're missing at minimum 1 day a week of school. As we wrap up this report, I want to share that we have found that credit attainment is the #1 factor keeping students from graduating on time with their peers. Ongoing training of matriculation teams helps to identify students who are off track in real time. We increase the cadence of matriculation meetings as we enter into semester 2, which is now, providing additional focus for students who fall behind. Credit recovery efforts for off-track students help support students who fall behind, including APEX for missed credits or missed parts of courses. In addition, extended learning opportunities outside of the classroom in the form of after-school programming, Saturday boot camps, and summer school opportunities using APEX for student credit recovery needs. Our diverse student population continues to grow. And finally, we'll continue to provide additional wraparound supports to meet those needs. Finally, we are enhancing our efforts to improve attendance, knowing that consistent engagement in school is key to academic success and credit attainment. Together, these efforts are aimed at providing our students with the support they need to stay on track and thrive academically. As we continue our efforts to improve student outcomes, I'd like to address 3 areas where continued support is critical. First, increasing awareness of the importance of daily attendance remains a key priority. While we've made progress, we know that consistent school attendance is directly linked to academic success. We need to continue educating students, families, and the community about the impact of missed school days and work on strategies to remove barriers that prevent regular student attendance. This is a collective effort and really a call to action for our entire community that requires outgoing outreach, incentives, and resources to help students understand and families understand and community members understand that every day in school counts. Instructional time matters. Second, we need to advocate at the legislative level for the needs of our more vulnerable youth. These students often face unique challenges. To better support their success, we must push for the resources necessary to meet their needs. Finally, we'll be coming to the Board Policy Committee to align our policy with the new state's graduation requirements. So that will be forthcoming. Your continued support, both in local initiatives and in legislative advocacy, is crucial to ensuring that our students have the resources and opportunities they need to thrive. And I also want to name that we want to remain committed to these board goals. We certainly feel that these areas are certainly the areas that we should be focusing on to really ensure that our students are on track for success. I started with gratitude. I want to end tonight with expressing my thanks to all of our teachers, principals, staff, and community who work tirelessly to ensure that our student needs are met. Finally, I'd like to end with the story of one student and his teacher. At Northland High School, we have a high school student who was mentored by a staff member throughout semester 1 and based on their off-track status and is now on track to graduate. Even though the semester is over, this senior continues to check in and provide progress updates to their adult mentor. This is the heart of our work, building relationships that inspire our students and motivate them to achieve. I want to thank all 7 of our board members for your collective commitment and ongoing continued focus on student outcomes-focused governance. Student outcomes will not change until adult behavior changes, and that begins with us. So thank you. And at this time, we'll entertain any questions that you have about the data, our strategies, and if you could just point us back to the slide you have a question about, we'll be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Thank you, team. So I will open the floor up. Dr. Chapman, excuse me, Dr. Pierce, you had a set of questions.
Yes, thank you so much for slide 16, the board support. We definitely appreciate that addition to the monitoring report, looking specifically at number 2, where it says legislative advocacy on behalf of our vulnerable students. Throughout the presentation in slides 12, as well as slides 10, and not so much in slide 8. We see that our vulnerable populations are definitely our homeless students, our emerging bilingual students. What additional information do we need to know as a board to be able to advocate at a legislative level for those vulnerable students?
Thank you, Dr. Pierce, for that question. When we look at this data and we think about our more vulnerable youth, we are certainly thinking about the non-academic barriers that prevent them from getting to school, that prevent them from accessing the instruction, that prevent them from being able to attend or engage while they're in school. Some of those barriers may be housing instability, food insecurity, other challenges with whether it's transportation. We just want to make sure that we are really thinking about how we support the whole child and how we continue to advocate and elevate those non-academic barriers. When we think about, the attendance data, and then you continue to disaggregate that data, you then become better, you better understand that in many cases, students aren't choosing not to come to school. They may be dealing with other challenges. We call those non-academic barriers, like mental health challenges that have not been addressed. Social emotional needs that have not been addressed. So access to resources that really support the whole child, that help remove some of those barriers so that they can focus on their learning.
Thank you so much. That was my question.
All right, thank you. Madam Vice President.
Before I have two questions, but I would like to say thank you to the administration and to the members of the West High School matriculation team. President Cole and I had the opportunity to go and watch them in action, and this was the second time I personally have gone. And again, I'm just, one, the strength of a principal in the building, definitely you can tell. And West is doing an amazing job. And I think, for me coming away with, they did a great job talking about each student. They were very focused on those academic and non-academic barriers. But really for me, walking out of that room, it was the commitment of our adults to our students, going really above and beyond. Talking about doing home visits and, trying to help students with these non-academic needs, like finding housing, finding, things for a baby, things that our students are going through. Again, it's just, we sit and hear data all the time and we talk about them, but to see the dedication and the work. So I just wanted to say thank you to the team and the principals. And I know that, this is a strategy that we are implementing in all of our high schools, but I think some are doing it better than others. And so it was great to see one that is doing it really well, and engaging all levels of the organization in the school. So not just leadership, but the family ambassador was there, and the social workers were there, and the coaches were there. And the room was full of just all the adults wrapping their arms around the students. So just wanted to say thank you for that opportunity to see the strategy working. Okay, I have two questions, one on the data. So when we look at slides 9 and 11, even though we are making progress, which is great, we still haven't yet hit the benchmark. And when we look at it year over year, the point differential is looking steady, so they look very parallel. So I'm wondering if the strategies that we've chosen, if you are expecting maybe next year that we just got to give it a little more time for us to get over the hump to get above the threshold line, because right now we're going very parallel, which means that we are not on track to hit the overall targets. Very close. We're so close. But I'm wondering if you... just looking at these strategies, is it we need to give it a little bit more time? Is it we need more resources in some of them? What's going to give us that little bump to get over or above those marks in the 10th and 11th grade cohorts?
Dr. Brown, can you turn back to slide 9? Sure. I think so I know that each cohort is getting stronger, right? Because we're starting this work sooner. We're starting this work earlier. As I mentioned in my comments, that we're starting this work in 8th grade. So before our students even get to high school, we're already starting conversations about matriculation. Now that we have established these goals and we have, set these targets, a key component of this is awareness. Just like when we started our attendance campaign, we had to make sure that everyone was aware of what the goals are, what the expectations are. So each cohort is getting stronger. When we think about that 9th grade cohort, our students are coming in stronger. They were certainly on target for meeting the goal. That certainly is the expectation. Not only is it, so it's awareness, we're starting earlier, our students, each cohort is getting stronger, but we are also refining our response, right? So each year, our response, how we really support the team that is having a laser-like focus on what the students need and their responsiveness to that, it is getting even more meticulous, more granular in terms of their strategies as well as their responsiveness. So I certainly think there's significant value in us staying the course in terms of with these goals. so we can continue to perfect and refine and reflect on our strategies.
I think that the goal, like just looking at what's up on the screen right now, I think everything you said is reflected in that, because next year we are expecting that the cohorts are coming in stronger, that people are working and getting it, and we're increasing it to 62, right, on this one.
The targets keep moving.
The target keep moving up, right? So that's my question is, do we anticipate that based on the strategies we have, doing it, keep going, everything is going well, with that expectation that adults are getting it better, that the students are coming in stronger, are we still anticipating the parallel? Because the past, we didn't really even get closer. We got 1 point behind in 10th grade and 0.3 ahead, so a little bit in 11th grade. But you know what I was talking about?
Yeah, the trajectory for 11th grade will actually meet the goal by the end.
Okay.
We're on track.
Can you talk about why you think that and what the strategies are that are leading you to that when it looks very parallel?
What I'm suggesting is you look at the gain that was made this year.
Mhm.
If we continue that rate of gain, we will close the gap by the end of that goal window. So it is a trajectory where we're accelerating and we are closing the gap. There's a sophomore slump here, and I would agree, the more that we invest in 9th grade, the better prepared kids come into 10th grade, and the easier that this gets to move overall. This is still, a relatively new strategy in our schools. And deepening that practice over time, I do expect it will accelerate it. Like, as with anything else, it improves with practice, it deepens with practice. And I agree, leadership matters.
So do you think that trajectory, if you could just kind of think, is that next year? Is it 26, 27? When do you think we're getting closer for the 11th grade?
The 11th grade would meet at the end of this trajectory, at the 27, 28 year. We would close that gap.
Okay.
I was just going to also add that when we look at matriculation in high school, the 9th grade year is the most pivotal year for all students when they transition to high school. And the success that they have in 9th grade is usually a predictor, indicator of how they're going to perform in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So we are really, 9th grade is the year where we have to really double down our efforts to make sure that our students have the success that they need, because the further our students get off track each year, the longer it's going to take them to catch up and get back on track and attain those credits. One of those strategies is thinking about how we curate that really, really unique experience for our freshmen in that freshman year, and that's another strategy that we're working on for next year to make sure that, that 9th grade year, we're really setting them up for success and making sure that they have everything that they need so that they're successful and do not get further off track.
So based on what you just said, looking at our 9th grade data, even though they did they did decline from the year. So do you have any concerns about that based on what you just said about, is that just kind of a one-off, we anticipate that coming back up? Or
Well, our efforts are in response to this data. We recognize that this is the year where we have to really, really, really focus on our 9th graders. We cannot afford for our students to get off track in 9th grade, because we'll literally have to pay for that each year, and it's more costly, it's more intensive for us to respond and intervene in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. Once they start high school, that there's no additional time that's added to that clock. We have to make sure that the student experience, the instructional time, everything is maximized in that 9th grade year. And so you'll hear us talking more about a strategy to make sure that that is happening in 9th grade.
And then a strategy question on slide 14 on attendance. Superintendent, you talked a lot about days, students missing days of school. I think we have a lot of students that miss hours of school. So maybe they're attending all 5 days, but maybe not a full day.
So those hours add up to days. Right. Missed instructional time, whether you're tardy to school, you're arriving late, leaving early, all minutes count. Every day counts, every minute counts. We want our students, we need our students to be in school. And this is truly a message for our entire community about stressing the importance of student attendance. Every day counts. All families should have access to their child's attendance records, so you could be able to log into the parent portal and see how many days that your son or daughter has already missed school. But this is certainly an area where we have to attend to. And if we look at this data and we look at each cohort, cohort 2026, 27, 28, you can see the percentage of students that are severely chronically absent, meaning they're missing a significant amount of school. Well, there's a direct correlation to their ability to stay engaged, attend school regularly, and earn the credits that they need to be on track to continue to not only graduate, but just to be on track as a 9th grader, be on track as a 10th grader, be on track as 11th grader. And so there's certainly an effort or a need for us to continue to create greater awareness around why every day counts.
Every minute counts.
Every minute, every day for every student.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Are there any additional questions? I think Board Member Simmons, you had a question.
Thank you. I thank you, President Cole. I did have a couple questions. I wanted to clarify, are we anticipating that the 11th grade trajectory will remain the same? It sounded like you indicated to Vice President Adair's question that the 11th grade trajectory we can hope will remain the same. Are we anticipating that the 9th grade trajectory, because by that same logic that our 11th graders might meet the goal by the 27-28 school year, currently that would mean that our 9th graders would not be meeting the goal by the 26-27 year. So I just wanted to get maybe a bit more clarification around what we're anticipating the future of the graph might be.
So when I look at this, I tend to look at trends over time and look at a trajectory over multiple years, at least 3 or more. And if you look at 3 or more years, you'll see that that would put our 9th graders on a trajectory that would exceed. With our 11th graders, there has been an acceleration this year, and one would hope that that would continue.
What might that acceleration have been contributed
2.3 points.
No, is there something that we maybe started doing with our 11th graders that's new this year, or just as our staff develop their competency and get more familiar with this new strategy?
The one piece that I would feel comfortable speaking to again is that the investment that we make in students and having more students on track in 9th grade as they go to 10th grade, go on to 11th grade, is like an investment in the bank. It pays with interest as it moves forward. And so it actually makes it easier for the 11th, if more kids come into 11th grade on track, then it's easier by mid-year to keep more of them on track. It is that, again, that model of if we start early, keep folks on track, then it gets easier towards the end to keep them on track as well.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I see. And then Dr. Chapman, I was hoping maybe you could just touch upon 8th grade. You said there's some 8th grade matriculation work taking place, and I was hoping you could just talk a bit about that.
Certainly. So as I mentioned before, we're beginning this work earlier than before. Our students can start earning high school credits in middle school, and so we're introducing to them the graduation planner so that they know what they have to do when they transition to high school. We're starting those conversations much earlier so that our students and our families are aware of what the expectations are, the graduation requirements, and they have it's at their fingertips. And so that will not be a surprise to them when they start high school.
Thank you. And then just one last question, if I may. What type of district-wide support staff are available to support the matriculation meetings? I know I attended one meeting last year, and there were some folks there, but I just wanted to increase my knowledge a bit about what type of staff might be available to support those efforts.
Absolutely. So we consider these meetings all hands on deck. And so pretty much every position that works, or every staff member who works with 9th graders would be invited to attend the matriculation team meeting. That could include, is not limited to, the principal or administrator, the classroom teachers, attendance specialists, guidance counselors, social worker, perhaps the nurses involved, family ambassador could be involved, parent violence, it goes on and on. So anyone in the building that's working with each specific cohort would have the opportunity and be invited to engage in these meetings.
And then, thank you, Dr. Chapman.
Additional question we have from Dr. Pierce?
Yes, just one additional question. Given that we can anticipate changes in graduation requirements and seals, how do we anticipate that those changes will affect our cohort 2026, 2027, and 2028? Will they be affected? Will they not be affected?
So that's certainly an area that we mentioned on the last slide. We would like to have an opportunity to review our graduation requirements in light of the state's graduation requirements and have some additional conversations, bring that to our policy subcommittee for further consideration. We certainly don't want to have we don't want our students to have to duplicate their efforts and work harder than they necessarily have to. We certainly want them to earn the credits that they need. We want their experience to be reflective of our expectations for them, but certainly we don't want them to have to jump through additional hoops or create additional bureaucracy where there shouldn't be in relationship to graduation requirements. So that's certainly something that's top of mind for us. We certainly want to highlight that and put it in a placeholder for now. And certainly provide additional feedback, context, as well as conversation around opportunities for aligning, ensuring that our policy are aligned with those new state requirements.
And if I could just ask a question of our board leadership and also to the chair of the Policy and Governance Committee, as we're having these conversations, if there's indication that, as some of our discussion has noted today, we see these parallels, we know that to hit our particular goals is going to take some additional time. And if we see that we need to adjust our goals and our targets, that we as a board can have that conversation as soon as possible so we are not impacting, again, cohorts 20, 26, 27, or 28 in a way that they are just trying to get up that ramp in a very short time frame.
I thank you for that insight.
Unless there are any other questions or feedback for us, this concludes our monitoring report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. All right, so moving forward
I motion to accept the report.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's in second. Call the roll.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Viera?
Yes.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Vice President Adair?
Yes.
President Cole?
Yes. All right, report adopted. Thank you again, Dr. Chapman. Okay, are there any additional, well, hold on, we have committee reports, We can start with equity, transparency, resources, and management.
Something like that. The Equitable Transparent Resource Management Committee. We met on February 12th. Our January meeting was canceled, so I have a report. It is in board docs for my colleagues in the community. We started the meeting off with 4 speakers for public comment to talk about the Safe Green Schools Climate Resolution. They thanked us for that passage, and all of them requested that we continue to work on adopting metrics of accountability and working on monitoring so we can ensure that that resolution that we passed is actually met by 2025. We then heard from Sustainable Columbus, who helped us better understand the City of Columbus's climate action plan. They basically went through that plan, explained what it was all about, highlighted that Columbus is seeing climate change, things like flooding, hotter urban temperatures, extreme heat, things of that nature. They outlined that their plan has 4 theories of action, which include equity and environmental justice, economic prosperity, community health, and environmental quality. They explained how they went about creating their plan and gave us some ideas about that. Their plan is divided into 5 developmental strategies, which include climate solutions, sustainable neighborhoods, buildings, transportation, and waste. They briefly explained how they benchmark those, and that would be what the metrics are all about. They explained how how CCS could, really help, and they're excited that we adopted our 2050 resolution, and highlighted areas for us specifically around opportunities in our buildings and transportation. Those would be our largest, as they are with the city, carbon emission problems that could be addressed. Lastly, they encouraged us, as they are doing, to continue to look at workforce development, which we are in the area of producing green jobs. And lastly, they finished off by letting us know that they have a Climate Summit action grant for young people between the ages of 15 to 24. Grants are open right now for the application between $1,000 to $5,000 to support mitigation and resilience projects. So they let us know. After the presentation, we did hear some comments from our internal team. Mr. Jeff Rowe from Buildings and Grounds shared some ideas about solar installation and discussed other energy efficiency projects that have been taken since 2020, including that the district has had a substantial decrease in overall energy use. So continuing that work is great. And then we heard briefly from Deputy Superintendent Catherine Mosier to talk about the excitement around the Career Tech, and we'll be hearing more about that in the next academic facility committee. Then we had a discussion with our understanding our cost of pre-K. I really encourage all the board members to please go back and listen to this one. In the academic committee, which I'll let board member Cole talk about, we heard a lot of information, which is also included in this meeting, but I'll kind of skip over that, about our pre-K program. I'll let him talk about it. Just real quick, we are the largest pre-K provider in the state of Ohio with 2,100 seats currently and 65 sites in 130 classrooms. So we know that our superintendent, including looking at our board goals and guardrails, we know that we have an academic return on investment by having a strong pre-K program, because it means that our kids that attend our pre-K are more on track for kindergarten literacy rates, which then helps us for our third grade reading goal, as well as doing better on our state report card. So here's what we talked about with the funding. So the way that pre-K is funded in our district, it's a braided model. So pre-K education is not part of the standard K-12. It's funded completely differently. So we use federal funds, state funds, local funds, and our district funds to make this braided funding model so that we can support tuition-free pre-K. So what has happened is that the state of Ohio, so one of our buckets of funding, our state funds, has changed the way that they are running their grant and funding programs. So we heard a lot of information about these changes and how it impacts and the potential impact to our future funding model. So first of all, just really quick highlights on this. The state, these changes were supposed to happen in the 2025-26 school year. However, the state decided to start implementation in November of 2024, catching us and families quite off guard. Some of the major changes that occurred had to do with how the system is administrated. So the way that families apply for this. So if anybody is familiar with more of a daycare setting, it would be applications to receive funding through different opportunities with the state. So it's public assistance, child care. And so there's three different buckets that the state has. And so the way they administer this, it used to be that CCS could help families apply, but now families have to apply through the Ohio benefits system, and it's managed by the county, something that CCS doesn't have access to. So we don't know if our families have applied, we don't know the statuses of it, we can't see it, and so we're on a time delay. And what happens is we are then the provider that is, the money is then given to, and we can't account for it because we just don't know. So there's a gap there in knowledge. Also, they have changed the way that families can access these. It used to be that families could kind of use these three types of state funding together in various ways. Now families can only use one. Most families are going to pick the child care, which is mostly used for daycare. Right now, CCS does not take that funding. So we do not offer, and it's because we don't offer extended day care services. So the 6 to 6, we don't do that. It's a school day. And so that means that if families can't use the other sources and we don't take that one, our families then don't have an opportunity to, use funding to help support their pre-K needs in our district. So CCS has to decide if it wants to take that, which I'll talk about in a second. The state did implement a citizenship requirement, which we know greatly, whether it's true or not, has an impact in thought on our families. And we know that our CCS program, just like our district, supports all children in our community. And that means that, this could, stop some of the opportunities for the most vulnerable citizens to get access. And lastly, the ECE grant program, which is the type of funding we do take, has changed for fiscal year 26, that it will no longer allow what's called working families under the poverty level. So families whose parents are working are now no longer eligible for this funding. So that means that there will be less opportunity for them to use it to come into our high quality pre-K. So I need you to go back and listen, though, because Dr. Baker talked much better and articulated this much better than I just did. Those are some of the highlights. So what can we do? So Dr. Baker basically outlined 3 things. This is with the assumption that we want, one, to maintain a tuition-waived pre-K program. We can either increase our general fund dollars, so fund this with more of our general fund, which means that we do not fund something else. Or we can reduce the seats, sites, classrooms, and staff, which means that we are serving less of the most vulnerable students in our community. Or we can accept the PFCC funding, which is the extended funding for daycare, which has an increase in cost for additional staffing, as well as an adverse impact to families due to administrative burden. So these are the challenges that we are facing currently, and we are starting this public dialogue to better understand. But what we know is, and it's showing up in our 3rd grade reading data, is that tuition-free pre-K programs in this city is a high return on our academic and fiscal investment. So it is important that board members understand this and continue to be informed. So thank you for letting me dig a little deeper in that one, because that is important. And we finished off with a quick update from our COO. The board did approve some demolitions back in November, and so we have some timelines for the old Wedgwood Middle School site, Deschler Elementary School, and the Franklin Annex. Those are outlined in the materials. And just as a reminder, these are all structures on current educational use properties. So there are schools or uses of educational purpose on these properties. So the first one that will be coming down is scheduled for, is the Deschler Elementary School site building, which is on the South High School fields, softball and baseball fields, and that demolition is scheduled hopefully in April, with the abatement and hazardous material happening from February to March, and then it will be backfilled and seeded by May, and then we kind of go on to the next one. So we're really excited to get these blighted buildings down, and to be able then to continue to talk about dialogue with the community about these and other properties as we continue to work on this. So that concludes my report. Our next meeting is, I did want to highlight one more thing, board. We do have an open recommendation, the committee recommended back in November to create a cash balance policy, so that is still an open item for this board to consider. Our next meeting will be March 12th. We plan on having a presentation of our annual budget, a presentation on understanding the cost of educational services for English language learners, and we have some audits coming from the state of Ohio as well as our radio station, WCBE, to discuss. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Madam President Amiris.
Right. Well, my report is brief. We have not had a meeting yet, but we will be meeting on March the 11th for the Community Engagement and Advocacy Committee. Really excited. We spent the past month, I put out a survey collection to the present committee members and chairs of other committees, in addition to our district superintendent, treasurer, and auditor. So thank you for those who filled it out to really help guide the work of this committee, making sure that the work plan is in alignment with the needs and the vision of this board and this district. So we've taken this month to be able to kind of regroup, reevaluate the priorities. So we will be meeting on March the 11th to talk about what this work plan will look like moving forward, in addition to some possible additions to the committee that I will be bringing forth to President Cole for consideration. And so right now we are in the evaluation and gathering phase and looking forward to coming together next month to be able to map out the next steps.
Awesome. Thank you. Board Member Ingalls.
Our committee has not met since December, and its next meeting will be March 10th at 6 p.m. at 270 East State Street. So the agenda is not posted because it is not yet finalized, but one thing that I can absolutely tell you we will be doing is continuing to discuss the building closure policy and what we want to see come out of that. So more to come.
Thank you so much. All right. For Academics and Facilities Committee, we got a presentation from Dr. Baker and team on maximizing literacy outcomes for early learners. And this was largely a focus on pre-K in the district that actually painted a very august and awesome picture of how our students are transitioning. First of all, how it aligns to our goal of strengthening reading proficiency. So I appreciate it and definitely wanted the committee to have an understanding of how this aligns to the goal in a way that is being proactive. This is actually a very proactive approach to preparing youngsters for early childhood literacy. It gave some information about how the inputs of MTSS specifically are aligned to that with Tier 1 instruction and Tier 2 instruction. Also spoke with regards to what the research is saying about readiness as it's related to early childhood learning. So we definitely know, and we've heard this data before, but we definitely know that the earlier that students are given access to education at an earlier age, the more successful they actually tend to grow and become in terms of also closing achievement gaps. So was definitely happy about that. We have quite a number of staffing in this space as well. So we learned that we have 74 general education teacher positions filled, 62 special needs teacher positions filled, 8 special needs teachers vacancies currently filled with long-term substitutes. And of course, we have 3 general education IA vacancies as well. But we're looking to make sure that we are closing gaps where we can for that. In the Step Up to Quality space, we are still bar none. We are still quite bar none, uncompeted with in this space. So that is also, in fact, for the last 3 years, we've maintained a high star rating. And they've actually changed the rating from stars to awards. So there's a gold, there's a silver, and there's a bronze awards designation. I believe that we are gold. Yes. All right. Again, we talked about making what strong collaborations look like between school and family engagement, and there's been a number of actionable steps taken to that effort. Our strategies are training pre-K kindergarten teachers and instructional assistants in LETRS for early childhood. So there's been a significant, we're taking significant steps very excitedly to ensure that adults have what they need and empowered in this space to help children succeed. What I also was very, very pleased by, and I think the committee was made very knowledgeable, is the curriculum implementation timeline. This was something that was presented to the board at one time, but also presented to the committee. So there's a 7-step piece to that leads all the way up to next year of 2026. At current, we are in the 2023-2024 stage 5 clarity of implementation space. So we're doing great work, and we've got more to learn. In closing, at the end, what this committee is learning is that, you know, there's opportunity, but also opportunity gaps, and where folks can actually begin to step into this space, to the clear allusions that Vice President Adair made with regard to funding and with regard to other community supports. So there's much to be done in this space, much work to be done to accomplish early learning literacy for our students and make our broader impact in the actual K through 5 years for instruction. So that is where we left off with that. I'll walk into this to the conference update. I took part in the conference of Council of Great City Schools Student Outcomes Focused Governance training. I'm one of the coaches. I'm one of the folks who's being trained to be a coach in this space. And it was very intensive 2 days, a very intensive 2 days, a focus largely on understanding what it means when we say student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change, and ways in which we use I statements, actually, to take ownership of that motto and also to take ownership of the work necessary to gain the right mindset, knowledge, and skills. The mindset aspect of this work is the largest, and it's the most intensive. And I really want to open the door up moving forward to not just our board colleagues to learn this work, but also the community. We will work together to design some dates and make community space available for those who want to learn and understand student outcomes-focused governance, how this works in terms of how you just actually saw today with modeling implementation through monitoring, modeling implementation through how we have discussions around this, how we dedicate time, board time, at the ideal amount of 50% plus to these types of conversations around student outcomes. So I look forward to the training. I will complete this training this year. I believe by November 2025, we will be complete and graduated. But this is something that's pretty intensive. We do work for the next 4 months. We'll be meeting every Monday, 2 hours a day, every Monday, and then every other Monday, I want to say, in those subsequent months. But this is very intensive. There'll be more opportunities for us to work with AJ and the team to learn more about the work that needs to happen in this with our governance model. Thank you. Are there any questions at this point? All right. We'll move on to voting for the consent agenda. Oh, no, we're not? Thank you. Thank you. That's correct. Thank you. Superintendent Dr. Chapman, and I didn't have it up on the thing. Dr. Chapman, thank you. You have your realignment report, yes?
Yes. Good evening again. Tonight, this is the second board meeting of the month, and as promised, we'll continue to provide updates to the board and our community, the second meeting of the month on school realignment. So certainly, we just want to share just a couple of quick updates. The committee has been meeting regularly to ensure we're thoughtfully and carefully planning for the realignment of the 5 affected school communities in our district. The committee had its first meeting on January 31st and completed the second meeting on February 14th. They're currently on a 2-week cadence, and the next meeting is scheduled for February 26th. A key milestone for the committee is developing a phased project plan for the realignment process, which we expect to be completed by May, And certainly that will honor the deliverable to the board to bring back to you a plan, a timeline by June of 2025. That was the plan and the expectation, the deliverable for the administration between January and June. At the heart of our work is commitment to putting students first. This means we aim to minimize disruption and actively pursue equitable opportunities for all. The committee has established guiding principles that will serve as the foundation for this work. Those principles include keeping students at the center of all decisions, engaging our communities in genuine two-way conversations, remaining adaptable, knowing that changes will be needed along the way, acting with integrity, saying what we mean and doing what we say, and ensuring that our actions support long-term sustainable success. The committee has agreed on a phased approach for this project. We'll begin with the elementary schools, then move to the middle school, and finish with the high school realignment. This methodical progression will ensure that we give each school the attention it needs while considering the impact on students, staff, and families. As we continue to develop a project plan, we've identified some critical tasks to focus on right away, which includes establishing a plan for school and community engagement meetings for Broadley and Moeller, because those would be the two elementary schools that we'd be starting with, collaborating with our GIS team to evaluate scenarios and capacities for the likely receiving schools, planning visits to the receiving schools for Phase 1 and Phase 2 to better understand the needs and opportunities in those schools. Our work is certainly far from over. We're off to a strong start. In the next few weeks, we'll continue to refine our plans, engage with our communities, and ensure that all critical aspects of this project are carefully considered. I am confident that with the dedication and expertise of this committee, we'll meet our objectives and successfully realign these schools in a way that benefits all students and certainly meet our deliverable to the board of June of 2025. Again, I look forward to the continued progress of this important work and excited about the impact it will have on our district. Thank you for your attention, and thank you to our committee for their hard work as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Are there any questions? Dr. Pierce?
Yes, question and kind of a request. Is there a way that we can align your timeline, which you shared with us, with the monitoring report timeline calendar, so the board is aware as to when we can expect the monitoring reports that you're giving us on our board goals, along with the realignment goals? And I'm specifically interested in the May date that you indicated that you would come back to us. Are you anticipating the beginning of May or the end of May? Understanding that we will be in graduation season during that time as well. So the question is around, do you anticipate the 1st of May, towards the end of May, and the request for calendaring of the timelines?
So that's a great question. I think we'll have to take that back, defer to board leadership. The monitoring calendar was adopted by the board and already approved, I believe, for the next 5 years, which includes the monitoring calendar specifically around board monitoring for our interims and our goals. That has already been established. I don't know that it would be the discretion of board leadership to determine whether or not we would add realignment updates to the board monitoring calendar. Certainly, our commitment has been that we will provide an update at the second board meeting of every month on realignment. That's what we've committed to, that's what we've communicated. We can certainly create a calendar for that, which would be separate. I don't know that that would need to be board approved, but we can certainly map that out in terms of the dates so that it's clearly communicated to everyone. And what I didn't add is that we are also launching our realignment, the website. So all of the updates that we have provided, we provided an update in January. This is the second update in February. All future updates will be on that website with additional information and FAQs, and we can certainly include the dates of the future updates so that everyone can kind of save the date, mark their calendar. When I mentioned that the team is working on finalizing that plan by May, the expectation is that we'll be presenting that back to the board, again, along the deliverable in June. It's certainly at the June meeting. That
second meeting of June.
That would be, yes, that would be the plan, if not before, but certainly the second meeting in June. But we'll make sure that we can certainly create a separate calendar for that, share it with the board, make sure it's posted on that website, and share it with everyone.
And so just to clarify for our board leadership, I'm not advocating that we go back and change that monitoring calendar that we have already adopted as a board. What I am advocating for is that as a board, we understand how the calendar for everything that we should be mindful of and due diligent about in providing oversight and support for our administrative team is calendared out, and we understand that. So it can be a separate calendar, but that we are clear as board members when we can expect monitoring reports, when we can expect alignment updates, and maybe just a brief, very concise 2 or 3 sentences around what those reports will entail.
I thank you, Dr. Pierce. I actually think some of those are actually good ideas. I see where there's open opportunity to take very functional look at that too on a committee basis. I think some of this could be adopted in the committee space as well for working, particularly between our 2 committees, and also engagement for SEAC as well. I see abundant, rich opportunity there. So thank you for that. Board Member Ingalls.
Any opportunity to ensure transparency and that we're aligned in our expectations, we're happy to receive that feedback and make sure we're working to align.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ingalls.
I had 2 quick questions, and the one honestly relates to what you just said around community engagement and what our community can expect. I heard it when you mentioned starting with Broadley and Moeller. And I was going to ask, do you plan to involve the board's community engagement committee, and how should the community expect that to happen?
So a couple of things. One of the next steps was to visit the schools and the administration. So I went to visit with the staff to make sure that they understood what was happening, right? And so we're continuing to message to our community the decision, the impact on the respective school communities so that they're clear about the decisions that the board has approved and the work to move forward. And I just wouldn't be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to name that while we're talking about realignment, CAS, Columbus Alternative High School, is not closing. It's important for us to name that every time we have this conversation. That's not how the board voted. The board voted actually to move the school to another location, and that location has not been determined. So we will continue to work in our community internally and externally to make sure that we clarify that message. The second piece that I want to name is that for West Broad Elementary School, there was a contingency that was attached to that vote. And so as of right now, there are no changes for West Broad Elementary School until the board identifies a funding source to build a new school. And so that's another conversation, certainly work that needs to be done. And as Board Member Vera mentioned earlier in her report, she sent us all a survey. And on that survey, I know that I shared a lot of feedback around how the engagement committee could certainly support this work with strategies, suggestions for additional engagement opportunities for the community. So just a teaser that I've shared that feedback, but certainly would like to leverage that committee, and certainly we can all work together. This is certainly an area where we can work collaboratively, hand in hand, to ensure that we are providing all the opportunity and access to our families to give us feedback.
All right. Does anyone have any additional questions? Board Member Vera.
Thank you, President Cole. Thank you, Dr. Chapman, for these updates. I think I just wanted clarity on 2 things. Is it the cadence that the committee will be meeting twice a month to be working on the realignment?
It's
process?
every 2 weeks,
Every
so
2
yeah,
weeks.
twice
Okay.
a month, essentially.
And then is the committee, is this an internal committee? Is this a committee that's consisting of outside expertise, or can you give any?
This is an internal committee. Again, the challenge, the ask of the board was for the administration to come back with a timeline by June. And so our team is working on, thinking very deeply about that timeline, what it looks like to honor that deliverable from the board.
Great, thank you. And when did you say that the community can expect the website to be up and ready to provide?
Our team is working on launching that today, so I would say certainly by the end of this week, it'll be live, but I'm expecting it to be even sooner than that.
Thank you. And I will assume that this information will also go out in multiple languages and be accessible to all of our school community. Is that correct?
Yes, but certainly the direct messaging will be with the 5 impacted school communities. Again, we have moved from district level conversation. Certainly the website is accessible to everyone, but these next steps and the decision making will be highly localized as it is impacting 5 specific school communities. So when we think about that plan and we think about that timeline, and then we'll be working to develop that engagement around the school communities that will be impacted. So, for example, if we're starting with, let's say, Moeller Elementary School, we will identify, the schools that either the feeder pattern or the schools that those schools would be certainly included as a part of that plan as well, like the feeder schools.
Perfect. And then my last is really not a question for you, Dr. Chapman, but really kind of just something to highlight for us as a board, as you indicated with West Broad, as that relates specifically to FMP and a completely different process, just really identifying what is our plan for evaluating FMP, what committee is that work going to lie in, what is our timeline for rolling that out to evaluate that plan as a whole, so that we can begin to have those types of conversations and because we have work to do on our end to figure out that next piece. And I know we have not really talked about that, so just wanting to flag, we need to talk about that and have a timeline or some kind of additional conversation.
This is something that both myself and Vice President Adair are actually in discussion about now and getting some idea around. So we look forward to working very collaboratively with you. These will be a part of our regular Monday conversations when we do meet. Yes. Vice President.
Right now, just we have a tentative for April in the ETRM meeting to actually start the conversation about understanding funding options for West Broad. So that is, our treasurer will be leading us through that, and that's on the schedule for April because we do need to start this conversation. So we'll start it in committee there. I'm wondering, first of all, I want to explain why I made the face to you. When you said 5 communities that are impacted, it's more than 5 communities because it's 5 buildings, but there are other communities that are being impacted by it, with families moving into those and changing those learning communities, as well as when you redraw attendance boundaries. It may be that someone is going to a school that wasn't on that list that now with a redraw is going to a new school. So I think we have to be open and very transparent with our families that this isn't just the 5 buildings that we named. This is about realignment of learning communities across the district. So while you're having local conversations, which I get, I don't want people to be upset when things start to happen. And they're like, wait a minute, it wasn't my building. And so I just want to caution on that. I do have a question. You didn't mention 270. I'd like an update on 270.
Yes, so we have another working group that has been working on the plan for 270. They are meeting regularly to discuss, one of the most recent meeting, they were discussing which services should be centralized versus not centralized. And so thinking about how to provide access to families, all of the supports and services that our families access, and then how to provide support for other programming where there's an opportunity. Again, as we talked about realignment for school communities, it's also an opportunity to realign our central office services. So the work is happening, the committees are meeting, and again, we are on track to meet the board's deliverable and that timeline of having a recommendation to the board by June.
All right. There was, Board Member Ingalls, I thought I saw your hand up at one point before.
I'm okay.
Okay. Dr. Pierce?
So I just want to end that in this brief time, you providing us with this update, we see that it is going to be key and critical for our entire board to understand what our administrative team is doing on a local and a broader district level. So the sooner we can get that calendar, if we could just get the document that you shared with us, kind of outlining what the intended next steps are, because as I hear Board Member Adair say, that committee will be focused on the FMP process in April. You saying that your team will be focused on, kind of finalizing in May, which you will bring to us in June. I'm also wondering, will there be some conflict? Could there be potential alignment between the work that you all are doing? So I think it needs to be, if you're discussing a process around a funding source for a building that you all are potentially looking at realigning how students are, the boundaries around it. So again, I think the whole entire board needs to be aware of the calendar for how that work is happening.
So West Broad, the superintendent is waiting on board action. So she's not doing anything with West Broad until we can identify a funding source. So right now, West Broad is kind of over here, just like Haas is over here, right? So she's working on the buildings that she mentioned. So we can start, but I think to Christina's point about just the broader FMP discussion, that actually would be in the Academic Facility Alignment Committee. And I think that is a discussion we need to start about the whole picture of it.
So again, I think there are multiple discussion points that we need to have, and the sooner that our board can outline that calendar in collaboration with the administration and the superintendent. Matter of fact, all three of our direct reports, as well as our treasurer and our internal auditor, the better we will be positioned for success.
Yeah, I don't disagree,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Pierce. We also are working with our COO's office on an integrated facility plan. So that's something, too, that's really critical that outlines all of this work, just like you said. So I think things are happening, and perhaps you're just not informed of it.
Well,
Wow, thank
things
you
are
for that,
so.
President.
You
want to take over President
Yes.
Cole, because
Yes, I do.
Board
Yep,
Member Adair is
exactly.
coming in
Wonderful.
hot today.
Wonderful.
Coming in hot.
Wonderful.
Forgot who
Wonderful.
she talking to.
Wonderful.
I don't care if it's
Wonderful.
Black History Month. She about to meet a real Black
Wonderful.
woman.
Please, please,
Okay.
please, please. Yes, this is not how we're going to convene conversation. I understand. There are much better ways to communicate and certainly do that offline. But at this table, that is not acceptable.
I think her comment was rude and inappropriate in terms of me not being informed about the information when I was literally saying that we as a collective team need to calendar it.
I hear you.
Period.
I hear you. Thank you.
And that was very inappropriate on her part.
I thank you. All right. So this is what I want to do in terms of just acknowledging the salience of the conversation in a way that I think is helpful for you. One is that we're looking at alignment of administrative work in a way that guides committee work to help fill in the gaps or provide additional information. We want to see definitely some sort of moving forward calendar where we're actually figuring out what the trestle board actually is, what this work actually is, when it is scheduled to complete, all of that. So we want to see a schedule. We want to work with you to that effect. We want to work to identify priorities moving forward for the committee to actually consume and then act on. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'll try and say it a different way. But I'm hoping that we're on the same page in terms of what's being requested by the board.
We welcome the opportunity to work hand in hand with our board to align, make sure that the calendar is clearly communicated and we're aligning the work that's happening in the committees. Certainly the purpose of those committees is to make sure that we're supporting the work that's happening at the district level. So again, we welcome any invitation to do that work and be happy to accommodate.
I thank you so very much, Dr. Chapman. All right,
President Cole, can I just add that it's really disheartening, and I just want to put it out here, that we start off with a resolution honoring Black History Month and working collaboratively, and we have a board member who rolls their eyes at the superintendent, notes that in their comments, and is then
Dr.
disrespectful to other individuals. And I just want to say that
Dr.
it's
Pierce.
disheartening. It is disheartening that we can't show one another respect.
Dr. Pierce.
especially during a month when we're supposed to be highlighting collaboration and partnership.
Dr. Pierce, I absolutely understand and agree.
It's hard.
Hold on, I understand, and I'll use an I statement. I'll use an I statement. I understand where you're coming from. I share some of the same perspective about adult conduct, but at the same time, and this is a comment to everyone, it's not just specific to you, it's to everyone. Until we demonstrate from our space, our change, and our focus in how we behave, what we're trying to impact won't change the way that we are intending for it to change. I want us focused on that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. We're going to move forward.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. With that, direct reports. Internal Auditor O'Connor, do you have a report?
I do not.
Good evening this evening. It's always good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Treasurer Cook.
Good evening. No report.
Good evening, sir. All right. All right. Thank you very much for that. Moving forward to voting on our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Is there anything at this point? Well, I guess it's too late to ask now. But all right, we'll call a roll.
Yes.
Ms. Ingles.
Yes.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Mr. Simmons.
Yes.
Vice President Adair.
Yes.
President Cole.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Consent agenda is passed. Now, with that, we'll move on to executive session. Madam Vice President.
It is recommended the Board of Education move into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G3 to confer with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action, and Section 121.22G4 to prepare for, conduct or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. That is a motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion and seconded.
Ms.
Call the
Ingles.
roll.
Yes.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Mr. Simmons.
Yes.
Ms. Vera.
Yes.
Vice President Adair.
Yes.
President Cole.
Yes.
We're in executive session.
All right. We will go into executive session. After executive session, we will adjourn. Thank you all for coming this evening. Get home safely.